What's going on, pre-chiro students? It's Dr. Ben. I'm a chiropractor, just trying to connect with other chiropractors out there that embody the practice, the principles, and are living that lifestyle. So today we have Dr. Lynn Tran. Dr. Lynn, I actually found you on Facebook. You were hosting and facilitating a conversation with Dr. Marchman at a local event, and he's been on the show, and I really enjoyed that conversation. So I figured we would have a sort of even playing field of where we're coming from consciously, but also we could go deep and explore some ideas. So can we just get started by you introducing yourself and just kind of sharing a little bit about yourself, what you were up to before you became a chiropractor and what attracted you to this path?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm grateful, first of all, to be on the show and to be able to reach out and connect with pre-chiro and chiro students alike. And it's a really beautiful field to be in, and it's a lot of evolution, truly, that is continually changing. It's changed me, and for the better. My practice is Wild and Precious Optimal Living, and it's inspired by one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, from her poem Summer Days. And at the very end of her poem, the last question read, "Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And this was during a time when I read this when I was in my 20s, early 20s. I was struggling a lot in the sense that I struggled with depression. I was bulimic, and I was literally in a place where I absolutely hated myself and not very motivated with life. And it was just really, really difficult time for me. And I found that even then there was always this inner voice that just said, just keep trying, keep showing up somehow. And I started working for different chiropractors as their office manager. And that's how I originally was introduced to chiropractic, was just the self-care that I started receiving. And then on top of that, being able to talk to different patients. Some people call them practice members. I do. And so just different clients, different patients that were coming in, and just seeing that medication wasn't the only solution. And it was a very different alternative approach, complementary approach. And it was really fun too, in a sense that I was exposed to different chiropractors with different approaches as well too. I remember that my last straw where I fully committed to wanting to go to chiropractic was when I was personal training at this time, and I wanted to I had a client who's a chiropractor, and I wanted to go to her office and just check it out. And she just had such a beautiful practice in a sense that it was aligned to who she was. She brings in some herbs as well too, and she does her own tinctures and different things. And she still really honored chiropractic in a sense that your body has the ability to heal from the inside out. This power that is within you. And that really shifted me. I really felt like that was really aligned with what my personal interests were, my passions were. Outside of chiropractic, I practice yoga, and I teach and meditation and yoga. So long story short, it just melded together very well. And I applied to chiropractic school right away after that. And this was in my early or late 20s, actually. So now I'm a mom, and my husband's also a chiropractor. And we practice together. There's continual evolution of learning to practice together, honor each other's approach, honor each other's art. And it's been a very beautiful journey as I transition into motherhood too, and seeing my son grow so quickly. He's already 4, and there's just so much more appreciation for life itself, so much appreciation for the neurology that's happening, and seeing my son develop, and this curiosity that I never had before. And I don't think I would be as skilled and tooled and mindful of my own son's journey if it weren't for chiropractic. So it's truly a lifestyle, and it's truly not just a lifestyle, but a philosophy that I find in ways that how I make my decisions, in ways in terms of understanding my person and my own personal interests and what I align with and what I choose to do with my life. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's so much to unpack there. I would love to. I appreciate you being vulnerable about
Yeah.
having challenges with how you
Mhm.
relate to food and your body image and your self esteem
Mhm.
at that critical juncture of life. I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And I'm wondering, is that what drove you inward to start practicing yoga and meditation? Or what was it that like landed you in chiropractic offices? You said you started to work with chiropractors. Was
Mhm.
it like working as a CA with chiropractors, or were you a personal trainer and yoga teacher and you were trying to kind of build that bridge between people that are living a healthy and wellness lifestyle and what you were doing, and you knew that chiropractors would be the best place to kind of reach those people? What
Mhm.
was going on in your life before chiropractic school, and like just bring us into those moments where because I just want younger, people earlier on in their path, not necessarily younger people that are not yet in chiropractic school, really to unpack all of those things that you touched on. Like, do you
Mhm.
think it's a good idea to become a personal trainer or a yoga teacher before you go into chiropractic school? Did that help you? And just kind
Mhm.
of keep reflecting on that time, because I think there was a lot of juicy moments that you touched on there.
Absolutely. So it's all interspersed. It's not like events happened, like this happened and then this happened and this happened, right? There's all this mesh of events that happened that brought me to the right place and right time to make the decision that to move forward with chiropractic school. And so starting with the journey of my own personal journey in terms of depression and bulimia. I was in college when I was really struggling with my own body image, and I also struggled with school in a sense that I just didn't have the motivation. It's not that I didn't have the smarts to get, to understand what I was doing, but I found it really hard, first of all, to focus. And I found it really hard to have the motivation. Literally, I came to a point where I would have an organic chemistry exam and I wouldn't show up for it. I would still be in bed. And that was a very different mindset that I had then than where I'm at today. But I was so depressed that I just didn't have any drive to do anything. I just wanted to hide in my room, and I was locked. I was locked up. And I remember with bulimia too, it would be something where I would drive from from McDonald's to Burger King to Taco Bell all in one drive. And I would buy all these outrageous cravings that I had. And just cravings for fat, cravings for a lot of fried foods. And I just had this craving. And then I drive back to my apartment. And I just remember just downing everything down in like a matter of minutes, like maybe like 10 minutes. It was just, I ate it really fast. And then I would sit in complete remorse and just shame and guilt and hatred for myself, because then I would go to the bathroom and do my thing to just push everything back out. And it wasn't obviously, it doesn't sound beautiful. It's awful. And this mental state that I was in just continued to elevate and escalate that. And I struggled with depression. I struggled with bulimia throughout my 20s. It began in high school. And it just got worse until I started, working for in a different health fields. And I had started to just continue taking classes. And I remember when my first chiropractic position was actually in college as well too. I was actually marketing for chiropractors, and I was out in the open too, and had actually like talked to different people. So there's this very different dynamic. I didn't have any labels, but I would say depression, but I would be not motivated. But then outside, I would still go and get jobs because I wanted to have some freedom. And so, anyways, I was a chiropractic promoter, marketer, and I did a lot of screenings. And that's really my first exposure and explaining to people what chiropractic was without truly experiencing what chiropractic was. And it started to evolve in my late 20s when I was working as an office manager for another chiropractor. And at that time, I was running front desk. I was helping with the patient aspect in terms of helping with setting up different types of equipment. So I got a lot of perspectives from this particular chiropractor and how to manage different aspects of the business. What was so interesting about it was when I was working for this chiropractor as his office manager, I had no desire to go to chiropractic school because I saw that he had to run his own practice. And I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of freedom behind running your own practice. So it's just like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine the stress and just having this one chiropractor was solo outside of me being his office manager. And so I would hear him have conversations about money. And at that time, you know, in my 20s, I wasn't comfortable in talking about money. And the way his tone was when he talked about money versus like being in the adjusting office and just taking care of patients, there was two different dynamics there. And I was kind of turned off a bit behind it. I love working with people. That's absolutely, you know, I feel like I'm a person of service, but it was just something that pushed me away for a good bit. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until that later down, continual exploration, all my different jobs was really, truly an extension of Lynn trying to figure out who she was and knowing that at least I want to help people. I want to be able to be of service and be in the health field. And so me describing all this, and then as a personal trainer down the road, I actually was forced to go out, and I had to go out and get clients. I had to go out and get to know people. I had to do things to talk to people. And it was when I had my client, my chiropractic client, her name is Dr. Jen Hartley, and she's been in practice for over almost 20 to 30 years. And in fact, I'm now practicing in her building in the suite downstairs that she practices upstairs. So it's funny how things take you. But long story short, she became my client, and I was actually working with her. We got to know each other. We just, you know, really resonated with each other, and learned about her practice and saw how she practiced. I never worked for her, but just visiting her practice was just like, wow, this is so beautiful and so amazing. And it was extension of who she wants to be, who she is. And I love that. And by that time, because I had personal training experience where it really truly was just going out and talking to people, I had the confidence to say, if I can go and do this through personal training and get to know people in the community, and I'm promoting myself, I can totally do this with chiropractic. And I've always loved the art behind it. I just wasn't sure about the business. So the opportunities behind putting myself out there, I think that is the saving grace that I've always had throughout my high school chiropractic, was even though I had all these mental barriers and obstacles, there was always this inner voice that just said, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep showing up. If you fail, you're failing. That's okay, but just keep doing it. And that was the biggest transition for me. I was able to go back to school, get another BS degree, and in a sense, give myself another reset. And how I was able to do that was with my own personal self-care through yoga and through chiropractic. Yoga is a big part of my life. It was the biggest aspect in the sense that I took my teacher training, and it wasn't the traditional teacher training where you get everything in the course of a month. My teacher, Hansa Knox, and she practices here in Denver, and she's a teacher of all teachers. And she taught me, this was before chiropractic school, and even when it was in between my working in chiropractors' offices and other side jobs I had, like a lot of exploration. But with that said, I did my certification, and that took over a year and a half. And the reason why was she broke down 275 hours of your initial yoga training, and we would just meet once. We would meet once a week for 2 or 3 hours, and then 1 month where we devote one weekend each month to be able to continue our training. So she really broke it down, and it was so great because it gave us time to integrate, to absorb, and to practice. It wasn't just take in the information, love what you can, and then forget about it. And that was during a time that I would say that, you know, was one of my hardest times in my life, where I was really inconsistent with some things. So the fact that I stuck with my training was a big deal. And what drew me to that was the philosophy. Again, it's this understanding of your connection to nature, and it's this understanding of how movement also helps you tune into your own personal insecurities or obstacles. And so it was very introspective for me, even though I was training and I originally thought, oh, it's the hip thing to do is to become a yoga teacher. It ended up being the first phase of my life where I really truly started to ask myself, who am I? What am I doing here? What's the barriers? What's the chains that's holding me back, and starting to delve into harder questions and being very honest with myself. And so that's what the gift of teacher training offered me. And it's it shows up in my practice in a sense that there's I combine functional neurology with chiropractic. And so there's a lot of science behind the functional aspect of understanding how the brain is functioning. And we may be looking at patterns that may not be serving you at this point. And so we rehab the brain. So there's that very structural, physical aspect. But the other aspect when it comes to the adjustment is bringing breath, bringing awareness to breath, and I actually do work with people in the sense that as they're moving, I have them move in yoga poses. And then I start to look at what are some of the disconnects that I, as a doctor, am seeing in these, range of motion, or even absence of breath, or even just resistance. And so I play with people in that sense. And then what I do is I take that and then I would apply my adjustment. And so it's become an art in a sense that every person that I have is like a yoga student. And I'm a yoga student myself, and meaning that there's always this constant relationship with our bodies. And I wouldn't have this depth, I feel like, if it weren't for my own personal journey and my yoga teacher experience. I found the right teacher, and it was really helpful for me. And the one thing that she mentioned, and this is going to be true for chiropractic too, is really asking yourself, what experience do you want to have with your training? And how do you want to shape that? And I did that with, first of all, with yoga. I knew I didn't want to rush through things, and I wanted to take my time with things. And that's exactly the type of teacher she was. And it worked for me. It aligned with how I learned and how I want to approach things. And I also wanted something very well-rounded. I wasn't just focused on the postures, right? It's about the philosophy, the history behind yoga, and the different aspects of yoga in which you can practice. So my big thing is meditation, and meditation, specifically yoga nidra. And from that, I also bring in sound and appreciating sound. So I do chants. So I got to go deeper because I have the right teacher introduce me to the right type of tools. Similarly with chiropractic school, when I finally decided that I was going to do chiropractic, I was going to go to chiropractic school. My primary decision was I wanted to be closer to my family. My parents actually lived in Dallas at that time, and that's how I decided to go to Parker. The other big part behind it, though, is now knowing what I know, I got very lucky going to Parker, because if you understand chiropractic school, there's a spectrum in terms of how they approach your curriculum, even though every school is going to give you the right curriculum in order to pass your boards. But the access to resources, the access to the type of people you want to learn from, having to be very mindful about. There are more schools that are very scientific, allopathic oriented. And then there are schools more in the middle where they embrace the art, embrace the philosophy, and they embrace the science. And then there are schools that also are very much more set on philosophy. And there's other schools that are more set on diversity of art. And so all those components, one is not more important than the other. It's really about where where it makes you feel like you're happy. Because as a chiropractic student, yes, it is about getting the license and everything, and it's just a temporary time, but the experience that you get to fill in it is really powerful in that sense too. And you get to fill in with a parallel curriculum, even meaning going to seminars of things that school may not offer, but you're allowing yourself the opportunity to explore different mindsets, different doctors who bring in different sources. And even then, it doesn't stop. Your curiosity behind chiropractic can continue beyond school as well too. So,
Mm,
uh,
mm,
so circling back around, and it's just what it is it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a yoga teacher. You don't have to become a personal trainer, or you don't have to go work in a chiropractic office to do the things that you do, or that drives your interest, right? Everybody has a different manifestation, different journey.
mhm,
And it may be a personal experience that you were exposed to because you saw someone struggling and you felt like, hey, I can make a difference there. That's awesome too.
mhm,
It's really asking yourself, in whatever you're doing, whatever you're struggling with right now, what opportunity, what can I learn from this situation? And that's what I got really, really, really good at. And I'm still getting really, really good at in practice now, is if something isn't working, and it's not, I don't sit and I don't blame others. I don't say, well, this is because life is hard on me. It's more of, what am I not doing right now? And it's not this beating up thing. I used to beat myself up hard, and it started to transition and actually giving myself space to say, okay, well, this may not necessarily be the right place. I'll try here. And then I start to learn, I started to learn more about what aligned with me. So yoga aligned with me,
mhm,
and personal training, yoga aligned with me in a spiritual and artful sense.
mhm,
Personal training aligned with me in a sense that I love movement and I love connecting with people, and
mhm,
it gave me the business sense. So if you
mhm,
want to have some experience outside of chiropractic school, and you can do this during school, is maybe get a sales job, or maybe start to maybe listen to YouTube or different tools, and
mhm,
see how other people are doing it, and it's going to build to every aspect. I feel like all my different opportunities where I was, even my darkest times, I was working, and I talked to strangers and everything. All that gives me a sense of comfort in who I am today too. And in reality, if we were one on one, if you got to know me day by day, I'm a very introverted person. So
mhm,
people can't tell that. I feel like, I, I'm comfortable going into public situations. However,
mhm,
I'm very much an introvert, and I love spending time with my family. And
mhm.
so, yeah, all my experiences, I hope, can, apply, and you found something useful from it. I hope I
Most
answered
definitely.
your question, Ben.
Oof, you went in. You went all the way in on it. You answered like 6 or 8 questions, but it was really beautiful just to hear your reflection. Your
Mhm.
path and mine are very similar in that I was also a personal trainer. I was practicing yoga. I was going to massage therapy school, and I was asking these questions of, what am I here to do? What is my long term trajectory look like? And I
Mhm.
kept sticking to this curiosity, and eventually I found the right place, which was chiropractic. But it's so interesting to hear our sort of mindset and our inner dialogue was very similar, and there's so much to unpack here. But basically, just to reflect for you on what I'm up to with this pre-Chiro project, because you touched on so much of
Mhm.
what it's about, is I want everybody to be given examples of people that had different paths. I think that our path is one path, it's not the path. And
Mhm.
it's just introducing people to some options and to some opportunities that they might not have thought about. And so, one of the things that we're encouraging people to do is enter into some sort of entrepreneurial venture after they've gone through a number of things. The first thing they go through is the basic module one of like me taking some of what you just talked about, which is like, what is chiropractic and why do you love chiropractic and why did you become a chiropractor, and just hearing that from multiple people in different stages of life, different backgrounds.
Mhm.
And then going to module two, which is like, what are the skills that chiropractors develop, what does it take to become a chiropractor. And I'm breaking those down into, you're a scientist, you're a thinker, you're an artist, you're a teacher, and you're an entrepreneur. And then the third module is, let's go take you into an office or a practice or a space, and help you observe in a structured way what it looks like to be in practice, to experience chiropractic, to to really, like you said, have time to integrate and not to just keep going to the office and observing the same things, but like go to the office, observe one thing, take the time to integrate it, and then come back and let's have you observe something else over an extended period of time. And then the fourth thing is kind of what I just was touching on, which is like, could you have the confidence knowing what you know now, having experienced and brought it from the mind into the heart of like knowing what chiropractic is and wanting to share that with others and having that sort of stretch moment where you stretch out of your comfort zone and talk to strangers in your college campus of like start your own pre-chiro hub, start your own hub of the wheel that you go out and you connect with different communities and you introduce them to chiropractic. And then the fifth one is independent study, you know, having gone through this whole transformative process, arriving at a time where, you know, you have maybe 6 months before you graduate college and you have time to go on this deep journey, whether it's a research paper or whether you're trying to look back at the history of chiropractic and really bring it to present moment and relate it to something that's relevant to the people that, you know, are going to come after you. But anyway, I just wanted to touch, and then it's the admissions process, and
Mhm.
then it's like then we get to the admissions process, and so it's this beautiful journey that we take people through, so that they can have experiences like you and I had, which is why we have so much confidence and sort of inner knowing that as chiropractors we're going to be okay, that we're going to be able to reach people, that we're going to, you know, we've had success in the past and we know who we are, and we're aligned in our practices. So I just wanted to touch on that for you to gain context. And so, can you fill in the gaps, or what comes to mind when you hear that, and like what are some strategies that you recommend people apply when approaching a program like that?
Yeah. So first of all, first thing is, had I realized that there was a program like this out there for me too at that time, when at that juncture when I was working with with my first chiropractors as an office manager, it maybe wouldn't have taken me that long to make a decision. I think I felt like I wasn't sure what else to expect from chiropractic, and being able to hear other practitioners take on their journey, um, perhaps even connecting with other pre-chiro students and learning more about how they may be making the decision. And also, had I known, then it would also better prepare me and get a gauge or get a better vision of what chiropractic school could look like and how I can shape it even more. So I love the structure aspect behind it, because it really helps to build and layer upon the different pre-chiro journey, because there is a preparation. When I made my chiropractic decision, it was on a spur of a moment, and I was just like, I'm going to do this. And I just did. There was no thinking. It was finally like, I'm going to do this. And so, although that journey was just exactly what I needed. And
Mhm.
with the pre-chiro, I think that that's a really great opportunity for students to truly explore 360 and be able to better prep themselves. So for our planners out there, I think this is a great program, it sounds like.
Mhm. Well, if you were one of the teachers, which you are right now,
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody in preparation for chiropractic school, having gone through the process? What are some of the things they should hone in on and focus on? Maybe take classes in, or maybe really explore within themselves, or just prepare for maybe the academic portion? Or what are some resources that really you appreciate that exist out there that you would point them in the direction of,
Mhm.
just so that we can keep planting those seeds?
Yeah, absolutely. So are you asking in regards to before chiropractic school or during chiropractic school?
We're acting as if they're
Okay.
chiropractic students and telling them, if I was a chiropractic student today, these
Okay.
are the things that I would be looking at, studying, reflecting
Oh,
on.
got you. Okay. Well, one of the things that I was really heavy on when I was in chiropractic school was I would attend adjusting seminars. And I did this I explored techniques like network spinal analysis. So it's very light touch type of adjustment and form and art form. And I also explored and and mentored and trained under other teachers that were more osseous adjustments, right? There's MLS, Mastery Love Service with Arnaud Bernier. And then there's also John Martinez with his Numa seminars as well too. And I was so fixated. That's my mindset, as I'm an artist. And so I love the art and the adjustments. One thing that I feel like had I been more mindful of too is being able to utilize your chiropractic schooling. Outside of that too is to create a vision for what you want to have in your journey of your what your practice actually looks like. Being able to have systems in place, being able to have that vision of how systematically things will run. I did not spend time doing this. And I spent more time with the chiropractic adjustments, which was great for me and obviously something I much needed. However, I really do wish I could go back and spend some time with exploring system type of practices or seminars, because then you get the business mindset behind it as well too. You start to ask yourself and allow yourself to go to seminars that have other chiropractors that have been in there. So what, like, one comes to mind in a sense that my friend spent a lot of his time in a training called Amped with Michael Visarelli and his team. And what I really admired about my friend was he, from the get-go, had a vision for how he wanted to practice. And he intentionally picked his experiences from screenings or even his internship or clinical hours to be specific to practicing specific skills as if he's going into practice. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. And it was much more of every choice that he was making was very intentional versus I was making choices that, okay, I'm in clinic now, so I'm just going to collect all of my numbers and hours and everything. And that worked, but I wasn't as intentional in the sense of, this is how I'm going to go out and connect with people. This is going to be, imagine that in this situation, what is that going to be like when I have my ROF, my report of findings? So I really love that piece that my friend had actually incorporated, and just, he felt more confident and more prepared and more planned. My journey has been initially to start off with schooling or right after schooling, just kind of figuring it out as you go, honestly, and making expensive mistakes. So you have a safe haven while you're in school to actually make your mistakes. So have fun with that and explore that intentionally. So you can be intentional with your mistakes, meaning looking to the guidance of certain practice groups, perhaps. And it doesn't mean that you go straight in and you're all in, right? You can evolve and change, but they at least give you a framework and they give you some ideas of what to really truly consider in the midst of actually being a practitioner, running a business, because there's many different hats. And yeah. So have fun though. Like I traveled to different countries for service, and I also did a lot of artful trainings and a lot of self-exploration, but I really wish I had spent more time in the business aspect. So don't hesitate to do that.
Can you kind of describe your practice today? What's the model? How long are you spending with people? Mm-hmm. What would you recommend students observe when coming to your practice? What would you recommend that they take in regards to the observations of you demonstrating maybe how you artfully adjust somebody, or maybe how some of the systems and procedures that you're now conscious of, that you've been able to develop and refine, have manifested themselves in your practice? Can you kind of just give us a little bit insight there?
Yeah. So my practice, as I mentioned earlier, is a combination of chiropractic and functional neurology. And I didn't study so much neurology in chiropractic school. It was just in this last couple of years that that was really the focus that directed my husband and myself. And so when you come into our office, there's different populations that I primarily serve. And while we still do see a lot of people with back pain, neck pain, more traditional aches and pains in the body, we do see rather more different cases that I never thought I imagined I would be able to see in chiropractic school or outside of musculoskeletal. So I do work with a lot of women who struggle with autoimmune. So they have mold exposure, Lyme disease. And then we also work with kids who from the spectrum of on the spectrum to ADHD to tics and motor dysfunctions. And so it's been a really fun in a sense of bringing in something more with functional neurology. So the first step is when you're coming in and you're shadowing a doctor, asking them, with chiropractic, it is truly the adjustment, right? And then the other aspects that they're bringing into the office, that's going to be their expression of their own personal interests. So a doctor may be really interested in nutrition. A doctor may be really interested, like myself, in neurology. Or they may bring other components. So I do some self-care empowerment coaching sessions. So that's one-on-one. And so there's this extension of me, and every chiropractor you're going to go into is just, you're going to see that extension of them and seeing how they've been able to orchestrate it together. I think that's always fun, and seeing if you're a person that likes to explore, seeing how they're efficiently utilizing systems to do so. Some chiropractic offices are strictly just chiropractic, and I love that as well too. It seems simple. It's also an art form because they've made it so simple. So it looks simple. So that's, with my visits too, I see clients between 10 to 30 minutes. So it really depends on what they need. If it's just chiropractic adjustments, they come in just for chiropractic. And if there's neuro optimization, then it's about 30 minutes. So we bring in different types of tools and technologies to do that.
Can you just describe the training, just to provide context on functional neurology, because it is outside of adjusting seminars. It's definitely a totally different area of study. Can you touch on some of the different resources that really shaped and influenced you and that you've been able to utilize in your training?
Yeah. So I'm still really new into functional neurology, but I wish we studied more of this in chiropractic school, because a lot of times I found that there was a limitation in terms of communicating that there's so much more than just your structural body. And I love that's where functional neurology came in. And I started exploring more of it through different doctors. So one primary is Dr. Robert Malillo. He is our coach and our mentor. And he has a series of modules called the Malillo Method, where he talks about brain more he's truly just diving into the actual neurology of the brain, the neuroscience behind it. And he brings into different types of research. He's a researcher himself. And in each of his modules, he explores more, his exploration is, or his focus is more specifically neurodevelopmental disorders. So really looking at kids and where the foundation of how their brain is developing and what are some things to look for and how to be able to strengthen those areas. So he's coming from that spectrum. And then there's also another influence for my husband, since he's more the science-oriented person, and I try to pull in the science with the art, with yoga and breath work and the emotional aspect. But let's see here. So there's John D'Onofrio, and he has passed, but Dr. D'Onofrio was a big influence in how my husband brings in his piece to the office as well too. And there's other new chiropractors out there, or they've been in practice for a while, but they're younger, like I'm in my 30s, so they're in my age group. And I would say that they bring in more heavy in the functional neurology side too. There's Brandon Crawford and Kyle Daigle. There's the Carrick Institute, which I haven't dug deep into, but the Carrick Institute is a really big one. There's I'm blanking here, but there's different organizations like IAFNR, so International Association Functional Neurology something. So anyways, there's different types of associations that you can explore, and there's chiropractors that dive deep in the science and the neurology, and they go through and get their diplomate program with it too. So that's definitely possible. You can pursue it while you're in chiropractic school, if that's something that you're really passionate about. And then you can also pursue it outside of chiropractic school. Right now, I'm just touching the surface of it, and what we've touched, it's been really aligned with how we practice in the office as well too. So
awesome.
mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to just thank you for your time and appreciate the depth that you went on your journey. It's really relevant, I think, to this population that we're trying to really support, which is that pre-Chiro student. It's such a mishmash of distractions, and there's so many options, and there's so much information, there's so much misinformation and misperception and misconceptions. It's really a misunderstood profession, and I think you brought a lot of clarity to just like where you were at, and how chiropractic kind of at first was just something that you were thinking about, and then you started to bring it down into the heart, and you started to experience it more, and it eventually became apparent to you that, hey, this is the path. So any goals or interests that you're working on, any passion projects that we could just highlight, that's near and dear to your heart right now, in regards to what you're up to and what you're bringing forth to the world?
Oh man, my practice is always a passionate project. In fact, yesterday, just taking the time and journaling and asking myself, how is Wild and Precious an extension of me right now as a mom and as a woman? And so I would say just the different pieces to my practice is continually doing that. Outside of that, my big thing is always yoga. I'm actually going to dive deeper into another training. So it's Kundalini Yoga. So it's going to be something that I get to dive deeper into, and I get to study more of the subtle bodies. So through breath work and different energetics behind that. And I know it ties beautifully into chiropractic. And just continually getting better at what we are studying right now. So the science, the neurology behind the body, and appreciating that. And then my most passionate project and forever project is my son. And so, he's always constantly making me better, and all my decisions he's why I do what I do. And so that's where I'm at right now.
And can you just really quickly touch on diversity and culture, and how important it is that we have more representation of not only women, but also women from different backgrounds and different cultures, and how you can imagine this being a supportive profession in maybe a different country, maybe where your ancestors came from originally. Like chiropractic probably doesn't have a large presence there, but what that could mean if it did, and how it might align beautifully with how that culture really does express and function.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the perspective of a female entering into practice, I feel like it's a very empowering journey. One of the biggest things growing up, when I witnessed in my mom, I'm first generation. She was born in Vietnam, so was my dad. And when they were here, I remember my mom saying, "Where can I go? I don't have anything besides my life as a mom." And it's not to say like being a mom isn't important. It's like amazing. But the other aspect behind it is she was missing a piece of her that she just didn't feel confident about going to pursue. And I feel like the presence of me doing what I'm doing, my hope is to be able to inspire other women to find something that's true to them, to not be afraid to explore, to not be afraid to get dirty and messy, and to be able to find something that's truly passionate. And even no matter what age, it doesn't even have to be early on, right? It could be middle life, in your 50s, 60s. And it's just finding something. It doesn't have to be a career, but just something that is your artwork and expression that you can offer. And I think that it's so fulfilling in that sense. And it really shifts a woman's relationship with those around them in that sense. I feel like my husband and I have gone through a lot of different trials. And if it weren't for the fact that I'm doing something I'm truly passionate about, that would have put a major strain in our relationship. It would really continue to feel a disconnect, and I wouldn't be who I am today in the sense of of loving myself. Absolutely. Like I talked about how much I hated myself, but I love myself. I love how I am, and I know my weaknesses, and I'm working on them, and other weaknesses are showing up, but I love the fun part. It's like I'm a puzzle, and I love it. So, and I want women to feel empowered that way, in whatever shape or form that I'm able to inspire them. And then from the diversity aspect, absolutely. I remember when I was a kid, and I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Would go to school, and I remember there was just like one other Asian kid, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's someone that looks like, or just like looks like me. Like, we have black hair, brown eyes, and I wanted to get to know that student so much, even though she may not necessarily have had the same interests as me. I just wanted to have friends. I just like, and that I felt like I could relate to culturally too. And there's just a different ease when I associate with other Asian Americans that maybe have gone through similar journeys that I have, and similar upbringings with, there's just different nuances with Asian parenting too. So I think, having presence in representing my culture is something that, being from the Asian culture too, a lot of focus for first generation, at least for the student, for first generation Asian American Pacific Islander Americans, is you either have to go into business or medical school, and there's this, there's that expectation, like with medical school, that's how you're successful. Even in my family now, they don't know anything. It's hard to explain to my relatives what chiropractic is. And as many times as I've explained it to them, it's hard for them to understand. And they don't really perceive that I'm a doctor or anything. And that this is not from the ego perspective, but there's this lack of understanding of what chiropractic can do. And there's just this disconnect, at least from my family. And I want to be able to inspire other Asian Americans to realize, hey, think about, like, there's another way to approach health, and it's a very wholesome and loving way. And it goes beyond the allopathic fix-it mindset. And I think being able to encourage other Asian Americans to, if they're thinking of something pursuing in health, really finding something that would really be resonant with them, and at the same time, another approach to think outside the box. And that's what really a lot of chiropractic, I think, is. And so being able to bring it into another country, man, that's something that my husband and I have had desire for too, like just to be able to live abroad and live in an Asian country, to be able to bring it there for sure. I think that there are practitioners that are doing that. And I think that they're doing it really successfully. There are limitations to certain countries that may not be so open to chiropractic. So exploring the laws behind that is something that we have actually looked into as well too. And then also being able to see, like, how are other chiropractors practicing in these specific countries. I think there's definitely a need. There's much more chiropractors here in the States than there are in the Asian countries. And I feel like that it could be something of benefit for sure.
No, I want to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and your energy. And if there's anything that you want to further share, or if you want to get your husband on here, or if you want to facilitate, because as I said, I saw you facilitating a conversation with another chiropractor, so it's obviously something you've got experience with, then you're more than welcome to come on here and have conversations with either pre-chiro students or chiropractic students, because I think that the more structure that the student experience has, the more they can grow into something that is really aligned with what they've come to within themselves, right? Like, the more aware they are, the more connected they are to the resources available in the chiropractic profession, which is a really abundant amount of resources. I feel like every chiropractor has a gift that they've realized they want to give to the next generation. That's why it's been so easy to step into these conversations with very little context, except how can we, broaden perspective on that next generation. I think that, I think it would be great to hear you more with other chiropractors.
Thank you. I would love to. So thank you so much for once again inviting me and introducing the and helping me stay connected to the chiropractic field from this sense and being able to, I'd like to think of it as paying it forward as well too, with what wisdom, not, I don't have a whole lot, but I'm getting there. And I think I'm happy to be able to share what I know.